Hello my friends and welcome back to Monet Cafe. Today I'm going to share something that's been highly requested, which is how do I prepare and make my own boards for pastel painting. This is a homemade technique to make your own pastel surfaces, and I think I'm going to call it the golden glow technique because it does use this golden product and actually a very golden color. And I want to give credit right away at the very beginning to the artist Rita Kirkman. I learned this from watching some of her tutorials, and I can't find any particular video she's done on it, so I thought it would be neat to do one myself. And again, I've had a lot of questions as to how to do this, but the golden glow technique is ends up just giving such a beautiful result. This is a painting of mine, pardon my reflection because this painting is framed with glass, but this is one of the paintings I did using this technique. You can see behind these poppies, the surface isn't even covered with pastel. It's got that almost a sepia golden color behind it, and it results in your painting just having a nice, beautiful feel. This painting here is another one that you can kind of see that golden behind certain things, even down here in the grasses. It's just that peeking through, which is just so lovely. You can't really appreciate these paintings with the glass on it, but this poppy painting also is one of my more popular on my channel of a tutorial I do. So if you're interested in that, you can see me actually painting that. So without further ado, I am going to show you how I use these products to create the boards that make wonderful painting surfaces. So let's get started, and this is going to be fun. All right, now I've taken my large piece of mat board, or you could use gator board or other products you choose, and I believe this is a 32 by 40 inch size, and I've divided it up into standard sizes. I find that working with standard sizes is so beneficial for finding frames and not having to spend the extra money to get custom frames done. And because I don't frame a lot of my pieces, this is also very practical and economical for your customers, those who will buy your art. So it's just a good idea. You don't always have to do that, but I've taken this piece. Here's how I've broken it up. I like big 16 by 20 pieces sometimes, so I've got a couple of those. I've got 11 by 14 is another favorite size of mine, and I've got a couple of those on here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 4 sizes. That little narrow one's just a random one. Then I've got 1, 2, 3, 5 by 7s, and then this one here is an 8 by 10. So this one board gives me a lot of standard sizes. It can be divided up into different ways according to your preference. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut up this board, and then we're going to get to applying these products. Okay, so now I have my sizes cut. I've taken the board and I've got a couple of 16 by 20s. Of course, you can orient these however you want, 20 by 16, you know, however you do your painting. I've got a couple of 11 by 14s. I've got 1, 2, 3, 6 by 4s, 5 by 7s, an 8 by 10, and a little random piece. So now we're ready to go ahead and get all these boards covered with the underpainting surface so that you're just ready to go. Whenever you're ready to paint, you have a board available. And this is the most economical way to do it, in buying the big sizes and cutting them down to your own custom sizes. So here we go, ready to paint the surface. Okay, so I've chosen an 11 by 14 just because it's a good in-between size, and it's the size that I use most often. But the way we're going to mix up our first surface is to use this product, Golden Gel Mediums Fine Pumice Gel. And I don't recall how much this one was, but I get my art supplies online, either off of dickblick.com or jerrysartorama.com. Much cheaper to buy these things online, and sometimes that's the only place you can find them. So this is the product that we're going to be using, and it's because it has the pumice in the product, it creates the grit that the pastel surfaces need. If we were to just do pastel on this smooth mat board, it would just, you know, kind of fall right off, and you wouldn't be able to get the layering effect. That's one of the greatest things I learned as a pastel artist, is what paper to use or what surface to use. You do need the grittier surface. So that's why this product is awesome for this prepared surface. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to give it a tone or a tint. And you can see some of it on here already. This is the one that, again, praising Rita Kirkman again for her beautiful work, but it's called Quinacridone Nickel Azo Gold. It's golden fluid acrylics. That's a long name for a color, isn't it? But it's absolutely beautiful. And if you notice on this product here, golden will let you know the transparency of a particular paint. They'll always have these little 3 stripes, and it's like they do a little paint swash over it. And you can see this is very transparent, so it's going to allow that light of the paper to show through, and it's going to keep it just a lighter value in general. So what we're going to do, I've put the ratio on the top of this jar here. It's a 1-to-1 ratio of fluid acrylic to the pumice gel. Okay, so you're going to mix equal amounts of these. And since I've started trying this and using this technique, I bought a larger one of these. Okay, and it goes pretty far. But I've also learned that it's very helpful. Notice this piece of plastic wrap under here. Because this dries, sometimes if you get the product on the lip of the jar, it will almost cement itself shut. Okay, so this helps me to be able to open it easily the next time. All right, so I've actually already mixed up some of this ratio. So this right here, again, I used the little plastic wrap so that it makes it easy. I think I actually was traveling and did it this way. But this is some of the medium already mixed up, the 1-to-1 ratio of the pumice gel and the paint, the fluid acrylic, okay? So let's just go ahead and do it right here. I'm going to open it up, and you can see this yummy color that it has. Isn't that beautiful? Wow, I love that. Looks like it slipped through my paper. All right, I'm going to lay this down. Probably going to make a mess here, but that's okay. That's what we do in art. All right, so here is the product mixed up already. Now, you've got a couple of options here. I believe Rita Kirkman uses a foam brush. This one's too big to fit in there, but you can apply it with a smaller one and use a wider one. A foam brush is going to give you a more even application so that you're not going to have a lot of texture and lines in your surface that you've prepared. However, a lot of artists, including me, sometimes likes the textured surface with the lines. It gives it that painterly loose feel. So you could actually also use just a regular paintbrush that's going to give you more of those lines if you want to do some cross-hatching kind of strokes or angled strokes to give you that, that really neat painterly look in your resulting painting. So I believe I'm just going to apply some and go ahead and do it with the foam brush just for ease of application. And so here we go. See, I've already gotten started here. That's why it's always good to keep some wipes handy. All right, so time to apply this wonderful mixture. We're like... So let this dry and I'll be right back. All right, now the fun begins. I've got some boards prepared now, the one that I did the demonstration on, and I also prepared a 4 by 6 inch board here. This one does have 2 coats on it. And I'd also like to mention that you don't have to use this particular color when tinting your pumice gel. You could use other colors. I've used kind of a pinkish tone before. I saved them in these little containers. And you could use a teal, a lavender, whatever you would like. I do like this golden fluid acrylics to mix with though, because it is very liquidy and it applies real easily. I also love this particular gold color because it's quite translucent and it's a great medium value. Lights show up really well on it and so do darks. And it happens to be a great complementary color to a lot of my landscape scenes. So that's some of the reasoning there. Now what I've done here is I've chosen a reference photo from a place that I went to recently for my husband's birthday. It's called Selby Gardens. It's absolutely a beautiful, beautiful place with just gorgeous gardens. It's in Sarasota, Florida. And I liked these impatiens. It's a pot of impatiens. Now what I've done here, I'm going to go backwards to show you. I found this great little app. It's called Photo Editor in case you have an iPhone or an iPad. And what it will do for me is right now the format for these flowers is not the same format as my 4 by 6 inch board here. So what I can do is I can go to crop, as long as I've worked in standard sizes, and right along the bottom here they've got some standard sizes. Now they're not all going to be there, but it's handy for a couple of my sizes. So I do the 4 by 6 and it immediately cropped it to that size. Now I don't like the flowers being right in the middle, so I can move it over a little bit here. I like that a lot better, having the flowers a little bit more over to the left, and I want to keep in this beautiful shadow that's being cast right here. That gives a little point of interest there. So then all I do is hit apply and done. And now I go back to my photos and that will be there. So it is just a handy little tool. I like sharing these things just in case it helps someone else. So now there is that cropped version of the flowers and I'm ready to go. Now I've also added my typical little aluminum foil tray underneath here so that it catches any pastel dust that falls. And I happen to have a tray of some pastels I was working with for another video, and I added some colors to it that I thought would look good with this painting. So I've got my little selection of pastels here. The next thing to do is, for this particular one, a lot of times with these boards, I will sketch it in with a pastel pencil. Not always. Sometimes I'll do a little value study underneath with pastels, but in this case, because I want to get this pot right accurately, I want to go ahead and sketch it in with a pastel pencil. So now let the fun begin. Again, as always, we're here in Monet Cafe, so I have my cafe, my coffee, and I'm just going to relax and enjoy this wonderful process of art. I'm so glad you're with me. Let's go. wanted to stop and step back and take a little break from this just to kind of analyze and of course get me another cup of coffee. Has anybody ever tried this stuff? This is awesome. It's cold brew coffee. It's incredibly expensive, but I got to buy one, get one free at my local grocery store. So it's very cool. You mix it with milk or whatever you want. But anyway, that's a little product moment advertisement there. Let me sit it down. Okay, so back to the painting. I wanted to make sure I got in the basics. That's typically how we work. We've talked about this before. Getting in the big shapes, getting in the basic values. And while I love freedom of expression and a loose impressionistic look, there are some things we have to get correct for good art. Some of it is just perspective wise. I've got this like bench that this is sitting on. And if I don't like solid lines. In art, you don't want to have just a solid line. You want your line or to be more of an edge where two values meet. But we do have to have that illusion correct. We have to have the angles correct perspectively. So I stepped back and I took a look at some of this, and I think I have a couple more corrections to do here. And also we want to have this, anytime you have any type of ellipse, an ellipse is just a curve or an oval or a circle, and the bottom of this pot is a circle, but it's on this angle. We have to have that correct. And even the little shadows under the rim, we want to get those correct as well. So those types of things, you want to slow down and be a little more purposeful. And what's going to make this pot look more three-dimensional is when I do add a dark edge. And also too, you want to always consider where is your light source. Now we can tell from the shadows pretty much where the light source is because the shadow is going to shine behind the light source, okay? So, but what's happening with this pot here is even though it's on the other side of the sun, it's getting some of the light is popping back up on the back of this side because of the light coming through these flowers and hitting this bench. So art is just an amazing thing that you can learn so much about how the world behaves, but a lot of it is just looking, using your eyes to look and see and analyze, and not just while you're painting, while you're out in the world. I have loved being an artist because it causes me to look at the world in such a way to analyze it, not in a tedious way, but in a beautiful way. Okay, so I'm going to get back to work on this. I want to keep it loose and fresh. I'm going to try to make my my strokes more purposeful right now, and pay attention to where I want those values and in the places where I always say I want it to pop. And we definitely want these flowers to pop. I've got a little bit of this going on here with the bright colors, and so I've just got to be more careful here. So here we go. Let's do it. right, I'm at a place now where I am analyzing and trying to put on the brakes, because you can get too carried away and overwork a painting at this point. And often I've looked back at my paintings when I recorded them and I'm like, man, I wish I'd have stopped right there. So I stepped away and I see what I want to keep is what I like to call a fresh look. Where the pastels have not been overworked and they keep their vibrancy of their color. So I'm purposely being careful at this point. So I'm going to add in what I like to call the pop of color at the end. And it's going to be some of these, where the sunlight is hitting some of these flowers. This is very dirty. This is another good reason to keep a scratch piece of paper around where you work, because you can just clean off your pastel. Now, also, because this prepared surface that I did was homemade, it doesn't have quite the grit as some of the prepared papers like UArt. But I kind of like that because it makes me, again, be very careful about my strokes and have what I call an efficiency of stroke. I'm not sure if that's a word I've heard or made up, but meaning that I'm not just going to start everywhere, because I'm going to lose the ability to layer more pastels on the top. This surface is only going to take so many layers, where UArt takes a lot more, the UArt paper, sanded paper. So at this point, the only pastels that are going to give me that bright pop of color are going to be very soft pastels, like this Terry Ludwig pastel right here. So you see how gorgeous that color is? Wow. So I'm going to go back to my reference photo, squint my eyes, and analyze where those light leaves are that are popping through. Some of them appear almost like they're white, but they're not. They're not a white value. It's just they look that way because of what is next to them. So I'm looking for those bright, bright greens, and they're mostly going to be, we can see the sun is hitting here because the shadow is here. And the sun is kind of coming around a little bit and reflecting off this, looks like a concrete bench. And so you're getting, the shadows aren't as dark over here. But once again, looking for those pops of color. And I'm probably just going to finish this one up and share the final. Yay! Anyway, I'm pretty pleased with this little guy, and time to sign it and call it done and just be thankful for God's wonderful world.